Looks like the half-pint Nazi Greg Bovino is out. Kind of. And we're going to talk about that. This is very reliable reporting from The Atlantic and other sources that are saying he's out. He's been boxed out of his social media. And this, I want you to know, is not, I'm going to make a few predictions here, but this is not about some sea change, some turn of heart of Donald Trump and the administration to change their evil, odious ways. This is all about optics because they are underwater in public opinion polls. The vast majority of Americans are not on board with what is taking place in America. They're witnessing the execution of American citizens in the streets of America, and they're not having it. And Donald Trump knows that it is only downhill from here. So he wants to try to convince kind of the normie segment of the population in America who doesn't really pay much attention to the news, but of late has been forced to because of the tyranny, the assassination squads roaming through the streets of a city in America. And Donald Trump's trying to, we got to do something. What are we going to do? Let's get rid of Greg Bovino. He's the face of this, not me, even though I'm threatening retribution and a day of reckoning. I'm threatening to assassinate or have executed United States senators who happen to be Democrats. But we got to change the hearts and minds of America against what they're feeling right now. So that's what they're doing. This is the headline from The Atlantic. And then I got some clips here and some other tweets to bolster the point and also provide you with what the fascist administration is saying. But the headline that is the tip of the spear on this reporting is from The Atlantic. Greg Bovino loses his job. The Border Patrol chief has been ousted from his role as commander at large and will return to El Centro. I didn't know that was his title, commander at large. There's a short joke here somewhere. And by the way, I get a lot of criticism. Well, look, you're 6'3". You have no business criticizing people for their height. It's not criticizing short people. There's nothing wrong with being short. You have no choice in that. But it's something that I know bothers him very much. And the likelihood that he sees me making fun of him being a short timer. Oh, there's the short joke. There it is. He's a short timer. He's getting ready to lose his job. It's to mock him. It's not to mock people for being short. So, get over yourself. The whole thing, I derailed myself. So that's the headline, that he's being sent back to El Centro to just go back to his regular duties of harassing run-of-the-mill border immigrants, I guess. Tricia McLaughlin is the spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security. Someone who, if she ever disappears, she went to Turkey to get her hairline fixed. This is her on Twitter denying that he's out. Chief Gregory Bovino has not been relieved of his duties. As press secretary stated from the White House podium, Commander at Large California is a key part of the president's team and a great American. Now, before I get to this article and read a few paragraphs from it, I want to really just give you the lay of the land of exactly why this is coming to a head right now and why he's on his way out. Because it is question after question after question from the media and from other Republicans who are saying this is no good. We'll start with the press briefing yesterday where Caroline Leavitt could not get away from questions about the brutality and disgusting unconstitutional nature with which ICE is operating in America.
Elena. Thank you. I had a question. With Homan now going to Minnesota, is Gregory Bovino also going to remain in Minnesota overseeing these ICE operations?
Mr. Bovino is a wonderful man, and he's a great professional. He is going to very much continue to lead Customs and Border Patrol throughout and across the country. Mr. Homan will be the main point of contact on the ground in Minneapolis.
So you hear it with your ears, what she says, but if you could read between the lines, that's just kind of a ticket. He's on his way out. Mr. Bovino is a wonderful man. He's a great professional. He's very much going to continue with the Customs and Border Patrol throughout and across the country. But Mr. Homan, the mushmouth dildo with ears, is going to be the tip of the spear here in Minneapolis. He's going to take over operational control of what's taking place in Minneapolis. Hopefully he'll bring calm. Maybe there's a kava somewhere in Minneapolis that he can go get a grab bag of $50,000 in bribes to make things calm down. Again, I'm going to get to the headline and the reporting from The Atlantic, but it's not just The Atlantic doing the reporting. Caitlin Collins had this to say about him being iced out. Oh, there's another joke. Iced out of his social media accounts. Wow, she says. Per Priscilla Alvarez, Department of Homeland Security has suspended Gregory Bovino's access to his social media accounts effective immediately. He spent yesterday responding to people who were criticizing him and raising questions about his unverified claims about Preddy. The murdered Alex Preddy, the assassinated, the executed by a mob of ICE goons, many of them clapping, or at least one of them clapping and celebrating as he was killed. So what does it tell you if someone at the notoriety in the public eye has been cut off from access to their official social media account? Is that a guy they have full faith and confidence in? I don't think so. Once again, that headline from The Atlantic, Greg Bovino loses his job. The Border Patrol chief has been ousted from his role as commander at large and will return to El Centro. Gregory Bovino has been removed from his role as Border Patrol Commander at Large, why they keep saying it, and will return to his former job in El Centro, California, where he is expected to retire soon. There it is. They're just going to let him languish and kind of just fade into the distance. The good news is he will not have a masked cadre of masked secret police constantly surrounding him, so people will be able to get close enough to tell them exactly what they feel about his accomplishments on the ground in America, securing fascism as the yoke of bondage that we've been under since Donald Trump took office. Bovino's sudden demotion is the clearest sign yet that the Trump administration is reconsidering its most aggressive tactics after the killing Saturday of 37-year-old Alex Preddy by Border Patrol agents under Bovino's command. Earlier today, that was yesterday, President Trump appeared to signal in a series of social media posts a tactical shift in the administration's mass deportation campaign. Trump wrote that he spoke with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, whom the White House has blamed for inciting violence, and the two are now, quote, on a similar wavelength. Tom Homan, the former ICE chief, whom Trump has designated border czar, will head to Minnesota to assume command of the federal mobilization there, Trump said. Homeland Security Chief Secretary Kristi Noem and her close advisor, the guy she's banging, Corey Lewandowski, the guy she had an affair with, Corey Lewandowski, who is now under the employ of the United States as an assistant to the woman he had an affair with. Family values party and everything. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and her close advisor, super close. He's inside of her, is so close. Corey Lewandowski, who were Bovino's biggest backers at DHS, are also at risk of losing their jobs, two of the people told me. For the past 7 months, Bovino has been the public face of traveling immigration crackdowns on cities governed by Democrats. Noem and other Trump officials gave Bovino the commander title and sent him and his masked border agents to Chicago, Charlotte, New Orleans, and then Minneapolis. Bovino became a MAGA social media star as he traveled the country with his own film crew and used social media to hit back at Democratic politicians and random critics online. Veteran ICE and CBP officials grew more and more uneasy as Bovino worked outside his agency's chain of command and appeared to relish his role as a political actor. In Minneapolis, the Trump administration used Bovino as its lead spokesperson, scheduling daily press conferences where he defended agents' rough tactics and cast blame on protesters and local officials. Border Patrol commanders typically avoid engaging in political arguments with elected officials. And then there's this here, of course, they are going to give their statement. I always try to offer their side of the story. even if it's tongue in cheek. DHS and U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials did not immediately respond to questions about Bovino's departure from Minnesota and his current role. Asked about Bovino and Noem, a White House spokesperson referred to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's statement today that Noem has the president's utmost confidence and trust. Utmost confidence and trust. We'll see. Now, to save face, what they'll do is what this article says, despite what the 12-head Tricia McLaughlin says, they're going to send him back and then he will quietly retire. But this is very likely not the last we'll see or hear from Greg Bovino. He'll probably pop up somewhere. I think he's from North Carolina or somewhere. He'll probably prop up and try to stand up some kind of a political comeback running for Congress or some such nonsense. This is not a guy who is going to shrink from the public eye. He's gotten a taste of it, and he wants that badly. But I for one, am here glad to see him go, even if it is just an optics thing. The terror will continue, the killings will continue, the brutalizing will continue, and the wrecking of lives will continue at the hands of Donald Trump, even though he's really trying to turn it over here and change public opinion. What do you think? Speaking of public opinion, I'd love to hear from you. You can comment below. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine and take care of one another. So it's not just the half-pint Nazi Greg Bovino who's on his way out. It appears, and I believe, Kristi Noem will shortly be exiting the administration as well, because Donald Trump doesn't have loyalty to anyone. If anybody gets in the way of the administration of his agenda, he will jettison them. And Kristi Noem has been absolutely loyal to the fascism. It looks like she's on her way out. And the reason she's on her way out is because the administration is now under fire from journalists and MAGA alike about how she's doing her job. Countless people on Fox News just over and over and over questioning the way she's handled this, jumping the gun and immediately calling Alex Preddy and Renee Good domestic terrorists with zero evidence. She has no understanding of what's going on the ground at all, and just labels Americans peaceful protesters, sometimes not even protesters. Alex Preddy wasn't even a protester. He was just a chronicler of what was taking place, an observer who was filming and then came to the aid of a woman who was being brutalized by Border Patrol, ICE, these masked fucking goons, and was summarily executed in the streets for his trouble. So let's start with this. This is a question from to Caroline Leavitt in the press briefing yesterday, which was just brutal for her.
The president up to date on all those details? The president is obviously very much on the ball with respect to this investigation. I think he's made that quite clear with the various statements that you've seen him put out, and also the 4 points that the president has outlined as well to Governor Walz, and to encourage him to cooperate with ICE and with the administration. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. To follow on Gabe's question, Secretary Noem said Alex Preddy committed an act of domestic terrorism. Stephen Miller labeled Preddy a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with them?
Look, as I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Preddy in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts in the investigation lead itself.
Was he alarmed to hear his top officials referring to him in that way, rushing to that judgment?
Danny, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. On Stephen Miller's comments, will Stephen Miller be apologising to the family of Alex Preddy for calling him, quotes, an assassin who tried to murder federal agents, despite the fact that, as you say, this is still under investigation?
Look, again, this incident remains under investigation, and nobody here at the White House, including the President of the United States, wants to see Americans hurt or killed and losing their lives in American streets. And we mourn for the parents. As a mother myself, of course, I cannot imagine the loss of life, especially losing one's child. And that same empathy from the President goes for the parents of angel families, parents of victims of illegal alien crime across our country as well, and that's exactly why the president continues to be wholeheartedly committed to deporting the worst of the worst criminals from our country.
I have not heard the president categorize it like that. That is, in political terms, is an earthquake. That is him. Well, the president doesn't agree. I haven't heard him say that. Yeah, listen, if that crazy ass says shit like that, that's on her. That's not on here. That's not coming from here. You got to go talk to her. That's distancing language, if there ever was. The heat absolutely kept coming in this particular press briefing. It did not get easier or better for Caroline Leavitt.
Gabe, go ahead.
For justifying violence.
I would defer you to the Department of Justice on that.
Thank you, Caroline. Regarding Minnesota, on Saturday, the Department of Homeland Security posted that Preddy looks like he wanted to do maximum damage to massacre law enforcement. Stephen Miller on Saturday posted that, or called Preddy a would-be assassin. Why did administration officials jump to conclusions before an investigation had even been conducted?
Well, look, this has obviously been a very fluid and fast-moving situation throughout the weekend. As for President Trump, whom I speak for, he has said that he wants to let the investigation continue and let the facts lead in this case.
What?
Now the questions are coming for Stephen Miller. My prediction is he's not going anywhere, mainly for the fact that he's the brains behind this operation. Donald Trump isn't setting the stage and calling the shots and setting the agenda for this. This is a Stephen Miller operation. He is, after all, the shadow president of the United States, an unelected, disgusting, reprehensible character in American history. Who will go down. He's another guy who's not going to have Secret Service protection forever. There are going to get people who are going to be able to get close and tell him exactly what they feel and how they feel about what he's done to destroy America, at least for this portion of our history. And for him to start taking heat alongside Kristi Noem is a big deal. It's a fluid situation, a fast-moving situation, and that apparently excuses them labeling a peaceful American as a domestic terrorist because it's fast-moving. Wouldn't it, being fast-moving, urge a more level-headed response? Look, we don't have all the information. We're going to do an investigation. We'll figure it out, and then we'll let you know. But right now, we're not going to jump the gun and make any kind of rash decisions or statements. That's how you act in a fluid, fast-moving situation, not immediately labeling someone who was executed by ICE agents, CBP, a domestic terrorist. Tricia McLaughlin, of course, again, the 12 head over at the Department of Homeland Security, she had this to say about the ouster of Kristi Noem, and it also didn't sound good.
How is the secretary prepared to help him fully make that pivot?
Yeah, absolutely, Dana. And I think the president and secretary, they've had at-length discussions. I can't get into those specifics, but Secretary Noem will continue to oversee, of course, the Department of Homeland Security, and she's very happy that Tom Homan, who is a great asset to the president, has a great depth of experience and insight that he will be overseeing Minneapolis. Secretary Noem has also been overseeing FEMA. She's been living there for 3 days during this storm, as well as U.S. Coast Guard, TSA, Secret Service. So her portfolio is really huge, and she'll continue with CBP and ICE. We've arrested and deported over 700,000 criminal illegal aliens.
Yes, I want to get to that.
2.1 million self-deportations, and she'll continue with that work.
Okay.
That's all just a very milquetoast, not forceful answer at all. Secretary Noem will continue to oversee, of course, the Department of Homeland Security. Will she? What a weird thing to say, that the Secretary of Homeland Security will continue to oversee the operations of the department that she is the cabinet secretary for. Stating the obvious is never a good thing, even for the dipshits in MAGA world. But really, the heat is coming from within the House. The call's coming from inside the House. Here is Will Cain agreeing while also calling protesters an insurgency, when the only insurgency is on the ground is at the hands of Donald Trump's masked secret police, his Nazi force filled with Proud Boys. But here he is saying that he doesn't agree with what's taking place, because the normies and the mommy bloggers, I think is how he refers to them, they are being pushed off of their position of supporting Donald Trump. But it's not good news for Kristi Noem either way.
He writes on X, Some of these sources have described DHS response to the shooting as a case study in how not to do crisis PR. One said they are so fed up that they wish they could retire. Another said DHS is making the situation worse. And another added that DHS is wrong and we are losing this war. We are losing the base and the narrative. Now, whether or not the Trump administration or DHS is losing the base, I do think there is a problem with the normies, the mommy bloggers, the Instagrammers, the moderates. And it's a problem in part of the making of rhetoric coming out of DHS that calls every one of these incidences a domestic terrorist. We have to tell the truth in these situations because the truth shall set you free, because the truth will bend toward the arc of justice. And justice and truth reveal that these agitators are on the level of insurgency.
Even they are saying, look, you can't call people domestic terrorists who are clearly not domestic terrorists. We've all seen the tape. Here's what's great about this, is that when Fox News steps in line to reality, the same reality we've been identifying in independent media, with all the MAGA trolls in my comments and in my voicemail box telling me, oh no, it was domestic. We all saw the tape. We all saw the tape. Where are they going to go now? When their spokespeople, people on Fox News, are saying, look, you can't call someone a domestic terrorist who obviously was not a domestic terrorist, and then tries to kind of spin it back that this is an insurgency, that peaceful protests are an insurgency. It's not just media figures in the infotainment sphere, like at Fox News. Even Ted Cruz, the servile mutt with his tongue in Donald Trump's asshole, even he had criticism for what the DHS is doing.
What I think the administration could do better is the tone with which they're describing this. That immediately when an incident like this happens, they come out guns blazing, that we took out a violent terrorist, hooray. And the problem is, particularly for someone not paying attention, if you're being told this is a mom of three and there's no indication, she's not waving an ISIS flag or doesn't have a suicide vest around her.
Yeah.
Escalating the rhetoric doesn't help, and it actually loses credibility. And so I would encourage the administration to be more measured, to recognize the tragedy and to say we don't want anyone's lives to be lost, and the politicians who are pouring gasoline onto this fire, they need to stop.
Look, when professional ass kisser Ted Cruz has criticism, you know you're in a bad spot. And I think that's exactly why. That might be the clip there that really sets the stage for the ouster of Kristi Noem. But also in the Atlantic reporting yesterday about the departure of Greg Bovino, this they had to say. Here's the headline again. Greg Bovino loses his job. The Border Patrol chief has been ousted from his role as commander at large, nothing large about Greg Bovino, and will return to El Centro. Earlier today, President Trump appeared to signal in a series of social media posts a tactical shift in the administration's mass deportation campaign. Trump wrote that he spoke with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who the White House has blamed for inciting violence, and the two men are now on a, quote, similar wavelength. Tom Homan, the mushmouth dildo with ears and former ICE chief, whom Trump has designated border czar, will head to Minnesota to assume command of the federal mobilization there, Trump said. And then this little ditty that we'll end on, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and her close advisor, so close he's inside of her, Corey Lewandowski. Yeah, I know, I'm giving my little commentary inside of what should be written in the pages of The Atlantic. And her close advisor, Corey Lewandowski, who were Bovino's biggest backers at DHS, are also at risk of losing their jobs. Two people told me. I agree based on reading the tea leaves and interpreting in between the lines of what they're saying. And the MAGA trolls who have the memory of a fucking goldfish are going to say, no, no, no. And then when she's not fired in a week, they'll say, you see, she wasn't fired. But let me tell you, in a month or so, let's give it 6 weeks, 8 weeks. they're going to find a way for her to leave. It's going to be she wants to spend more time with her family, whether that be Cora Lewandowski or her actual husband, who knows. An excuse will be made. It's not going to be a flame out, but she will go. She will depart. And this will be a chance for the Senate to actually do the right fucking thing. Many, many, many Democrats voted to confirm Kristi Noem, even though she was wildly unqualified for the position. And they need to put up a front of no to anyone unless they are overwhelmingly qualified and willing to do the job, actually do the job, not the bidding of Donald Trump with his masked secret police force filled with Proud Boy Nazi fucks who are an assassination execution squad. Anyway, what do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below this video. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. Of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. Hey, listen, if I do something for you, one, subscribe on YouTube. We are really trying to go to 1.5 million and obviously beyond that. And with your help, we can get there. I don't often say to subscribe, and that's probably my fault that I'm not farther along in the subscriber chase as I am. But if I bring you value, if I do something for you that you appreciate, please do subscribe. It's free. And like and follow the Facebook page, Dollemore Daily. I'll see you next time. I appreciate you very much. Be genuine and take care of one another. So former illegal alien immigrant Melania Trump, First Lady now, demands unity from the American people after her husband saw to the execution of 2 American citizens in the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota. She was just on Fox and Friends this morning with Ainsley Earhardt talking about her dopey fucking movie that premiered at the White House or had private screening at the White House, this $40 million blackmail bribery scheme that they've got going, this extortion scheme to pay this family untold millions, hundreds of millions, $1.5 billion Donald Trump has earned just in this last year of being president. And she was on Fox News demanding unity from the American people after her husband has absolutely sowed division like at no other point in this country's history. Like in this very tweet from just a few days ago, where he promised a day of reckoning and retribution is coming for Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she has the temerity to go on Fox News demanding unity from the rest of us.
But first, let's talk about some of the news that's happening around our country. And let's start with what's happening in Minnesota. There are these protests, there are these shootings. The world is divided. There's pressure on both sides. You have talked a lot about coming together and being respectful. And your husband yesterday had a way to maybe bring some calmness to that area, contacting the governor, contacting the mayor, hopefully working together. What is your message for America about unifying both sides?
We need to unify. I'm calling for unity. I know my husband, the president, had a great call yesterday with the governor and the mayor, and they're working together to make it peaceful and without riots. I'm against the violence, so if you protest in peace. And we need to unify in these times.
Mm-hmm.
It is beyond tone deaf for this person to sit there and, if I'm hearing her correctly, it's difficult, these people who demonize people for having an accent and requiring them to tell us where they were born while they try to create a white ethno-state to black and brown people. But she can work her way through the English language after having lived here since the mid-90s and apparently just can't get it together. They want English to be the official language of the United States, and the First Lady can't even master the language. Great. But she demands unity. I'm calling for unity, she says, while her husband talks about the day of reckoning coming. He talks about radical left scum. He puts posts out there about executing by hanging elected Democrats in the United States Senate. He's just generally a demented lunatic with an eye for vengeance and violence. We're witnessing executions of American citizens in the streets at the hands of her husband, yet she wants unity from the rest of us. Things get out of control, and then all of a sudden, let's bring down the temperature, everybody. You can fuck straight off, Melania Trump. You and your goon husband can fuck right off, all the way off. If you wanted unity, you should have started with a tone of leadership and unity. You don't murder willy-nilly and then say, all right, let's calm things down, Melania. Very rich, by the way, also, that Ainsley Earhart is the one interviewing Melania Trump about this goofy-ass fucking movie of hers. Ainsley Earhart, who has no interest in protecting the minority in the country. Only, what about the majority? I'm so tired of protecting the minority.
Listen, we have separation of church and state in this country.
What about the majority?
Okay, the majority.
I'm so tired of protecting the minority.
What about the majority?
Okay, the majority. I'm so tired of protecting the minority.
Yeah. It's a match made in heaven between these two goblins. The interview continued, and they start talking about the movie a little bit. But what I thought was really interesting is that they're explaining about what the movie is about and what they're going to be chronicling or talking about. And it couldn't be more just chef's kiss that she explains how it's about how she worked on the East Wing.
You released that right here on Fox and Friends First recently. What can we expect, and why was this important to you? Because you're a very private person in many aspects.
This story was never told before. So the audience will see me, how I manage my business, my philanthropy, family, preparation for the inauguration, and also establishing the East Wing for the White House. How I manage all of that in 20 days prior to the inauguration. Transition from private citizen to being a first lady again.
Establishing the East Wing of the White House. How's that? Just as a matter of clarification, Melania, I'd love to know, someone explain to me, I'm probably not going to get Melania on the horn, how's that East Wing doing that she worked on establishing? How is it? Is it the same East Wing that I heard was demolished? That's about a mile from where I sit right now. I live in vicinity of the White House in Washington, D.C. It seems like that East Wing is no longer a thing. It is rubble. It has been demolished in order that Donald Trump can erect his $500 million, his nearly $500 million ostentatiously opulent ballroom. That's his legacy, that probably won't even be finished before he drops fucking dead of a massive heart attack this year. Yeah. The other part that I want to bring to you that really is just so, this propaganda network is just so ridiculous. It's Ainsley Earhart asking questions about who was at this private screening. And there's this line in there about how teenagers in the room were just, oh my God, they were riveted at the movie about Melania Trump. I'll leave you on a high note. Watch this.
And I know that you had a private screening for the movie on Saturday. Just very, very close friends, family members. A source that was there told me that the college students, the teenagers were mystified. They were glued to the screen. They loved it. And what I was curious to know, what did the president say to you after the screening, after he saw it for the first time? Was that the first time you saw it Saturday night?
It was the first time that he saw a whole film, and he loved it. He said, a must watch.
And then what about Barron? Because I know Barron's in the film a lot. What did he say? What was his reaction?
He is in the film, and he liked it too.
And what about the other children?
The other children didn't see it yet.
Okay.
They will see it soon. And but it was wonderful to have so many world leaders with me on Saturday from all different fields. And we were celebrating it, and the reception of the movie, of the film, was very warm.
And what is your favorite part of the movie when we all go to watch it this weekend?
It's very hard to choose because the audience will experience many different emotions. Humor, sadness, grief, many things, and I think everybody will connect on the certain scenes.
The audience will experience all kinds of different emotions. Who gives the fuck about the Christmas? If I can find that clip, let me write Xmas clip. We'll put that right here.
They say I'm complicit. I'm the same like him. I support him. I don't say enough. I don't do enough.
No,
where I am, I'm working like my ass off. I know. That Christmas stuff that, who gives a about Christmas stuff and decoration, but I need to do it, right?
Yeah, but
I hope I was able to find it. I'm sure I was able to find it. Who gives a fuck about the Christmas? The Christian party, the family values party. You're gonna feel so many emotions. You'll laugh, you'll cry. Oh, the Melania movie. The only injustice is you'll not get any awards for it because you hired a credibly accused sexual abuser of women to direct it. Of course you did. Of course you did. Brett Ratner. Great. Anyway, what do you think? Are you going to be providing Melania the unity that she demands after witnessing the execution of Americans in the streets of Minneapolis? I know I won't. I will still demand justice. I will still demand an abolishment of ICE. I will still demand the stopping of a mass immigration, a mass deportation movement that is absolutely destroying the fabric of our country and our reputation on a global stage. What do you think? You can comment below. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. Of course, as always, you can email me the old-fashioned way, daily@dollemore.com. I will see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another. So I talked a couple days ago. It may have been yesterday. Everything runs together now. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was yesterday. And I talked about Donald Trump's the hypocritical, absolutely no adherence to the principles he says he adheres to, the things that he reveres and respects, like the Second Amendment. Donald Trump is creating a system where constitutional rights only apply if he says they apply to people. And the Supreme Court largely has let him get away with it. And Republicans certainly are letting him get away with it. But Anderson Cooper yesterday on CNN did a great job of routing Trump and exposing the hypocrisy that he holds, especially about the Second Amendment, because they're trying to vilify Alex Preddy as some kind of a domestic terrorist who showed up to create mass destruction and carnage and massacre law enforcement just by virtue of the fact that he possessed a gun. Second Amendment is something that, it's practically tattooed on Republicans' fucking foreheads. They love it so much. It's the only amendment to our Constitution that really matters. And Donald Trump campaigned on the Second Amendment being so important. So we're going to protect it so strong, the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment. And Anderson Cooper outlined, I don't think as well as I did yesterday, but he outlined exactly how hypocritical this is using clips of Trump, which is something I didn't do. But watch this, and then we'll take it from there, and I'll explain to you why it's going to be difficult to wake America up on Donald Trump's hypocrisy about the First Amendment.
Well, it's certainly a change of tune from him, now the FBI director, not to mention a president who once was all smiles alongside Kyle Rittenhouse, whom he called a, quote, nice young man. This time, the president went online saying, quote, this is the gunman's gun, talking about Alex Preddy's weapon, loaded with 2 additional magazines and ready to go. What's that about, he wrote. Now, again, this is from a president who until this weekend hardly stopped talking about his love for the Second Amendment.
I'm going to save your Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is under siege, believe me. To ensure Americans have the means to protect themselves in this age of terror, I will be always defending the Second Amendment. We are going to be so strong with our Second Amendment. We're not letting We're not letting our Second Amendment go. If the left gains power, they will demolish the suburbs, confiscate your guns, and appoint justices who will wipe away your Second Amendment and other constitutional freedoms.
The president has always also made it clear he's always going to protect the constitutional right, the Second Amendment constitutional right of Americans to own guns.
And now he supports the Second Amendment, just not all the time, depending on who's carrying the gun and who gets killed. Alex Preddy was apparently not his kind of gun owner. He was, however, someone who served his country by caring for its wounded and badly ill veterans, by comforting them in their final hours and honoring their passing.
So that's great. But the unfortunate thing is that we live in a world where Trump cult members are so stone cold stupid. They believe anything they're told. They have such an elementary understanding, like a 6 or 7 year old understanding of just what words mean, just the definition of words. So there are people out there who call themselves constitutionalists, who have no regard for the actual edicts of the Constitution, including the Second Amendment. Like this goober here, what's his name? Johnny Joey Jones, who apparently is a fellow United States Marine, a fellow enlisted United States Marine, combat wounded, retired veteran. And look, it doesn't make him smart, because he's certainly not smart. He is a dumb fuck, to be sure. In this clip, I want to illustrate to you what we're up against with these types of conservatives, to how much folly it is to endeavor to wake them up to Donald Trump's hypocrisy, because this dipshit he's the model for MAGA that we have to wake up. In this clip, he's going to tell you, I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. Absolutist. And then in the very next breath says, but there's restrictions. That's not what an absolutist is, you dipshit. Watch Johnny Joey Jones on Fox News yesterday.
Because I've been in that situation. There's a couple of things. Number one, the Second Amendment is a right. I'm not a Second Amendment absolutist. You have the right to carry a weapon to defend yourself, not the privilege. It is a right. Those rights come with restrictions. I think you would understand that more than anyone at this table. One of those restrictions is you have to have your ID and your permit on you. We don't know. Current reports are he didn't have either one of those on, at which point he's not carrying legally. But number two, even beyond that, with the right to carry a firearm comes the responsibility to do it correctly, and to do it with foresight, and to do it understanding the situation you're walking into and what could happen once you get there. Just about every state offers a class on that, and if you carry your firearm, you should take that class. And if your state charges you for it, you should go protest for that class to be taxpayer funded, because it is a right. So that's important. We can talk about policy all day long. There's only one person in this world that could have absolutely prevented Alex Preddy from getting shot that day, and it's Alex Preddy. That doesn't mean I think he should have been shot. I don't think it was necessary whatsoever to shoot Alex Preddy to save a life. But I get to watch that incident from behind Alex Preddy, not as one of the arresting officers, and not as potentially the person that I believe from looking at the video did shoot him. Why does he have 10 rounds in him? Because if you have to shoot anybody once, you better shoot them enough to kill them, because if you're shooting somebody, you think they're trying to kill you. Every police officer in this country is taught that. If you want to change that, go lobby to have it changed. Why was he shot? He was shot because of the reasonableness clause, the reasonableness doctrine. The Supreme Court decided this, which is the fact that if you are a police officer conducting police work and someone has, and it's explicitly outlined, someone has resisted arrest, violently or not, disobeyed orders, and shown the means to harm you, then you have the ability to protect yourself. Now, do I think he should have been shot? No, because I see 10 things that happened before that happened that could have been handled differently.
I'm a Second Amendment absolutist, but those rights come with restrictions. Well, then you're not an absolutist, dipshit. How are you able to function in our society as an adult? Do you have a driver's license? Did you pass a driver's license test? Was it an audio deal or like an online, like with pictures or something? Because how are you able to read? How are you able to function as an adult in our complex society, sir? You're not an absolutist if there are restrictions, if you admit there are restrictions. And there are indeed restrictions. There are no rights that are absolute. You don't have a right to impinge upon my rights in the execution of your rights. There are limits on all rights. Even Justice Scalia, Antonin Scalia, before he died, said that in rulings. You can't carry a bazooka. You can't have a rocket launcher. You can't drive a tank down the street. There are limits on your rights to bear arms, you doddering moron. And also to the point of, if he didn't have his permit, he wasn't carrying legally anyway. Why don't you check out the rules? Why don't you check out actual Minnesota statutes before you run your stupid fucking mouth? I read them yesterday, and if you missed it, I'll read it. Well, even if you didn't miss it, I'm going to read it again here. This is from the Minnesota State Code, 624.714, carrying of weapons without permit and what those penalties are. This is subsection 1B, display of permit penalty. The holder of a permit to carry must have the permit card and a driver's license, state identification card, or other government-issued photo identification in immediate possession at all times when carrying a pistol, and must display the permit card and identification document upon legal demand by a peace officer. Upon lawful demand by a peace officer. As defined in section 626.84, subdivision 1, a violation of this paragraph is a petty misdemeanor. The fine for a first offense must not exceed $25. He was still carrying legally, even if he didn't have an ID, but we don't know that he didn't have an ID. Whose word are we taking on that? Greg Bovino? Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, proven propagandists, fascist fucking liars, Johnny Jumpin' Jones, Joey John Jones. And even if he did, even if he was cited and charged of a fine for this petty misdemeanor of no more than $25, which means the fine could be $5, even if that was the case, all he would have to do is present himself to the office of the arresting officer or in court and say, oh, here's my ID and here's my card. It was valid. And then the fine goes away. Don't take my word for it. Here it is in Minnesota statute. This is paragraph B. A citation issued for violating paragraph A must be dismissed. The entire violation must be dismissed if the person demonstrates in court or in the office of the arresting officer that the person was authorized to carry the pistol at the time of the alleged violation. So maybe before you run your fucking mouth on national TV, Joey John, maybe you should check it out. What you're saying is false. It's not an alternative fact. It's just false. You're a liar, I guess, is what I'm saying. And this is the problem, this is who we're battling against in our war to open up the eyes and the minds of these morons within MAGA world who are in the cult, who are just swept up in the cult of personality of Donald Trump, who believe him to be some kind of arbiter for justice, some kind of patriot, while they just show themselves to be the fake-triots that they are. These don't tread on me morons who yearn to be tread upon by Donald Trump and his masked cadre of secret police, many of whom he pardoned for seditious conspiracy against the country in their attempt to overthrow the United States government, ending democracy and overturning a free and fair election. But I'm sure that Johnny, Joey, John, Jones, John's Jumpin' Gene John, he doesn't care about that. Do you care? I'd love to hear from you. You can comment below this video. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another. The Minnesota Secretary of State, Steve Simon, was on yesterday on the news, on CNN with Jake Tapper. And I know, look, a lot of times when you play these interviews of people that no one really knows because he's a local official, you know, a statewide held office. But this is maybe the most important story of the day. That's why I put it right here in the 5 o'clock time slot, just prime time for YouTube videos, because this is important. We're talking about a predicate of this operation where Americans have been executed in the streets that is based on wanting to hold states for some kind of a ransom, to have them turn over their voter rolls, their veteran status, their social security numbers, their work, all of this very sensitive, protected data that Kristi Noem ultimately said, listen, if you want the carnage to stop, if you want our operations to diminish, this is what you need to do. 3 things, one of which is to turn over voter rolls to which the federal government has no right. These people who claim to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, are those domestic threats to the Constitution. Our 10th Amendment sets up a system where any power that is not specifically granted to the federal government or specifically not granted to the states is for the states to possess. I'll actually read the full amendment to you, so it's not my paraphrase. You don't have to rely upon my bad memory. Here is the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, meaning the states are the people, right? That's a pretty good paraphrase of what it is. And Donald Trump does not respect the 10th Amendment. For as much as these Republicans act like the 10th Amendment, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, they don't give a shit about that, because it specifically, exclusively, the Constitution allows states to run their own elections, federal elections, state elections, local elections. It is a state matter, point blank, period, end of story. And Donald Trump wants voter data. Why? Well, to interfere in upcoming elections, to know who to target. If you don't think that information that they're requiring in their ransom note, which I'm going to read a little bit from, right here. If you don't think that Donald Trump's going to turn that information over to the Heritage Foundation or the Republican Party at large, you haven't been paying attention. This is the letter from Pam Bondi. I'm not going to read all of it, only the parts that are really germane here. Governor Walz, the state of Minnesota, has refused to enforce the law, and the consequences are heartbreaking. Americans are watching politicians ignore federal immigration law, criminals attack federal law enforcement, and rioters storm church services. I write to urge a change. None of that's happening. There are no riots. No one is rioting in church services. There was a protest where their conversations were had. Those charges are absolutely going to go nowhere. Mark my words. You and your office must restore the rule of law, support ICE officers, and bring an end to the chaos in Minnesota. Fortunately, there are common sense solutions to these problems that I hope we can accomplish together. To end the chaos, these are the things they need to do. Ending the chaos is the operative phrase here. If you want us to end the chaos, you need to do these things. First, blah, blah, blah. Second, blah, blah, blah. Third, allow the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice to access voter rolls to confirm that Minnesota voter registration practices comply with the federal law as authorized by the Civil Rights Act of 1960. Now they're concerned about the Civil Rights Act of 1960, while Harmeet Dillon, the person who leads that office within the DOJ, is ignoring cases against any minority and only seeking to prosecute crimes against straight white men. Yeah. Fulfilling this common sense request will better guarantee free and fair elections and boost confidence in the rule of law. I am confident that these simple steps will help bring back law and order to Minnesota and improve the lives of Americans. Sincerely, Pamela Bondi, Attorney General. How will turning over voter rolls help bring back law and order in Minnesota and end the chaos of executions of American citizens? That's the question. Well, Minnesota's Secretary of State, which is a position which controls elections, which operates elections within the states, he was on with Jake Tapper yesterday and talking about this very ransom note. And the things he said should alarm every American, up to and including MAGA world. If they weren't so blinded and in the cult of Donald Trump, they might be concerned. Let's start with this, the first kind of foray in the interview where they're just generally talking about it.
So you oversee the voter rolls. What kind of information do they contain? What do you think Bondi is after? Are they going after undocumented immigrants who would vote, although I would guess there aren't that many of them, if any?
Well, here's what they want. They don't just want the public stuff, which anyone can get, name, address, voting history, stuff like that. What they want is very personal, private, sensitive data on millions of people, namely social security numbers, driver's license numbers, military service history where applicable. And this is already in litigation. Like, we're in court on this right now. They've asked for this information from dozens of states. The vast majority, like Minnesota, have said no. There are multiple lawsuits going on, including in Minnesota right now. So that's what makes this particularly puzzling. Why they want it? That's a good question. That's sort of key to the legal arguments here. Our legal position all along, before this weekend ransom note from the Attorney General, was that state and federal law don't permit them to get this data. And so what she's basically asking us for in this letter is to hand something over which we think the law precludes her from getting under these circumstances.
Well, explain it.
All of those pieces of information would be of use to the Republican Party, to the Donald Trump campaign, or whoever might be running, because Donald Trump's not going to be alive then. He's going to die in his sleep, or hopefully of a massive heart attack on live TV. It would be of great use to the Heritage Foundation, for instance, for the ghouls, these fascists who want to remain in power outside of the bounds of our democratic elections. Social security numbers, driver's license numbers, military service history where applicable. These are all things that can target someone for what kind of a voter they are, what district they live in, what their status is just generally as a citizen and as a voter. Very dangerous. The conversation continued, and it didn't get any less alarming.
And so what she's basically asking us for in this letter is to hand something over which we think the law precludes her from getting under these circumstances.
Well, explain that to me. How would that violate state and federal law?
Well, in Minnesota, we have laws against, for example, disclosing Social Security information. And on the federal level, there's something called the Federal Privacy Act of 1974, which sets up all sorts of hoops and hurdles, none of which the Justice Department has met before they would ever even be qualified to see this kind of data. So we're arguing this in court. That's where it belongs. It is in court because that's where we argue legal disputes, not elsewhere. But we certainly don't add those on a term sheet of a ransom note to restore peace and security and stability to Minnesota.
So Bondi's letter says the request for voter rolls is to confirm that your state's voter registration practices comply with federal law as authorized by the Civil Rights Act of 1960. You don't believe her?
Well, it's hard to know what they really want to do with this. And that's the issue legally in these cases, is they have to show why in particular they need this particular information and what they want to do with it. Will they share it with someone? How will it be transmitted or stored or kept secure? And those are the kinds of questions we don't have answers to yet, and maybe we never will. But again, certainly they don't belong as part of this deal. What does the voter rolls have to do with what's happening on the ground right now with the ICE surge in Minnesota?
So Pam Bondi is not just encouraging, but cajoling, pressuring, demanding that the Secretary of State of the state of Minnesota break the law, both state and federal law. The head of the Department of Justice is asking for, demanding injustice. And it's a very accurate question to be asking in this case. What does the voter rolls have to do with what's happening on the ground in Minneapolis right now? It doesn't have anything to do with it. But what it does have to do with is staying in power in the midterms and beyond. They never want to be out of power, even though their policies are wildly out of step with what everyday Americans want. Of course, MAGA world wants this. They want that white ethno-state. But regular people, independents, Democrats, even right-thinking, clear-thinking, reality-viewing Republicans don't want this. We're going to get to that. The guy who is the leading candidate to run for governor in Minnesota, he just dropped out, and I think he's telling the Republican Party to pound sand. This conversation continues. This is on the very nature of this ransom note. And we're in a tight spot in America. Watch Steve Simon.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question for you, sir, because I guess theoretically you could understand the connection between what's going on in the streets and the sanctuary city policy of Minneapolis. Just broadly speaking. But the idea that they want the voter roll information and they're asking for that after the death of Alex Preddy, what was it like to see that letter?
I have to say it was just really deeply disturbing. Literally hours after the second, let's not forget, second killing of an American citizen in the city of Minneapolis by ICE agents, literally within hours, there's this term sheet, this ransom note, in essence, saying that among the conditions, or certainly implying that among the conditions for restoration of order and security and peace in Minnesota were this thing, which had never been discussed before, is already the subject of ongoing litigation with our office and many other states. So I don't know who was thinking what within hours of a tragic killing like that, putting this in a demand list.
Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon, a Democrat, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Literally hours after the execution. He didn't say execution. He said killing. He's trying to be a careful politician. We witnessed an assassination, an execution. Gun to the back of Alex Preddy's head. And hours after that took place, ICE agents clapping and applauding the murder, they send this ransom note. If you want this chaos, this execution chaos to end, give us your voter rolls. Give the demented lunatic president who believes he won Minnesota 3 times the voter rolls. What could go wrong? What could go wrong giving the man who thinks he won the 2020 election voter rolls? These people are anti-democratic. They want to end democracy in America. We witnessed on January 6, 2021, in their attempted coup, their attempted overthrowing of the government after Joe Biden won by 7+ million votes in that election. We know what they want. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below this video. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. Tell me where I'm wrong. I'd love to know. Am I being an alarmist? I'm tired of being called an alarmist and then being right all the time. And not just me. Many people have been, that label has been leveled upon. You're just being an alarmist. Oh, you're just doing this for clicks. Was it for clicks or was I right? It's worse than I thought it would be, so I was wrong about that. But come on. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. Thanks for your loyalty to this country, your interest in making the world a better place. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another. One of the problems we face in this battle with MAGA world, with conservatives, with Republicans, is the fact that they view what's taking place in this country right now as some kind of a game. Like not normal competitive nature of politics like in a campaign, but for the soul of our country, for the culture, for our very civilization, they look at it as a game. And if you don't agree or you think I'm wrong, let me play you a couple clips from Laura Ingram's show just last night, who is putting this idea of the operations of ICE and the Department of Homeland Security and Homeland Security investigations and every other federal force that's been weaponized against the people with these roving urban tactical assault squads, these execution gangs roving the streets of America and killing American citizens, of disappearing 5-year-olds. They're going after the worst of the worst. And then we see them sending to concentration camps 5-year-olds, chasing DoorDash drivers into private homes to harass and brutalize them. And they want to act like this is some kind of a fucking game. Watch Laura Ingram from last night's show, and then we'll address her odious comments on the other side.
Now, some, not all, hope to witness, I think, a violent response. Then they would clip it for social media, and then they could blast it out. So the more tragic in this warped mindset, the better. The more fodder for their demand that ICE withdraw from the city and immigration arrests end immediately. They think they have this image in the death of Alex Preddy. And tonight, as we learn that DHS is pulling back some agents, moving some resources out of the state, the numbers were, we know, probably not sustainable there. Maybe in the end, not even wise. But of course, the radicals are going to declare victory.
I think many Republicans are realizing what we've always known in Minnesota. Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've picked the wrong city. You've picked the wrong state here to pick on, because in negative 11-degree weather, 50,000 of us brave and go out and peacefully protest.
But if they think that they won here, they're sorely mistaken.
But of course, radicals are going to declare victory. If they think they won here, they are mistaken. One, this is just saving face, because this has been a disaster for Donald Trump, for the Republican Party, for this administration. But nobody is claiming victory. There are no winners in this. Laura Ingraham, you patriot. You monster. You facsimile of a decent person. There are no winners here. Alex Preddy was murdered on the street in America. His weapon was taken from him, and he was killed after he was disarmed by a gang of masked secret police. There are no winners here. Nobody's declaring victory. Renee Good was summarily executed in the street by Jonathan Ross, you fucking piece of shit. There are no winners here. This isn't a board game. Laura Ingraham, you think this is Risk or Monopoly or something? Americans are dead at the hands of Donald Trump's hand-picked, functioning illiterate federal masked secret police force. There are no winners here. As she plays B-roll of her on the streets, being peppered with questions, acting like, oh, it was so tense. They were out there to get their clicks and to get their social media, to put it up online. Most of the people in the crowd aren't even paying attention to her. They're filming elsewhere. Rewind and look at that. They're pointing their cameras somewhere else. Fucking main character syndrome here with Laura Ingraham, acting as though this is a victory or not a victory, or there's got to be a winner. There's got to be a victor in this battle. There are no winners here. We all lose. She finished with this.
So when this crisis ends, and it will end, the left will suffer another defeat, and President Trump will claim another victory. And that's the angle.
When this crisis ends, the crisis is here because Trump foisted it upon us. When the crisis ends, the left will suffer another defeat, and President Trump will claim another victory. Who gives a single fuck what Donald Trump claims? Donald Trump's going to claim victory even when he loses. Donald Trump claimed victory. Do you not remember 2020, Laura Ingraham? Donald Trump claimed victory in 2020 after losing the election by 7 million votes to Joe Biden. He claimed victory as he incited an insurrection against the country. He claimed victory while an armed, unruly white supremacist mob attacked the United States Capitol, smearing human shit on the walls, attacking law enforcement, battering people literally with American flags. I don't care what Trump will claim. And that's the angle. That's the angle. I got my catchphrase in. Ghoul, checking out. This is what we're dealing with in MAGA world. And let me tell you, she's not some uneducated moron. I think she went to Dartmouth. She went to an Ivy League school, which doesn't just say you're smart, but she's been educated. She is a smart individual. She's doing it because she's a soulless piece of shit. She's doing it because she wants proximity to power. She wants a culture shift in America to bring us closer to fascism on a permanent basis. That's who Laura Ingraham is. Her family detests her because of her vile inhumanity toward anybody who's not personally and directly connected to her. MAGA. She's MAGA. She may push back now and again against Donald Trump, but the objectives of Kevin Roberts at the Heritage Foundation, she is aligned with. Gross. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think this is a game? Do you feel victorious? Are you declaring victory after you witnessed Alex Preddy's assassination? I know I'm not. You can comment below. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. Of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I do want to hear from you. These are tough times. And listen, let me say this as a matter of encouraging you to take care of yourself. I got a message today from someone who asked me, how do you constantly cover this stuff? How are you always there doing it? And I have to check out. There's times I have to absolutely unplug away from the news. And usually in our household, one of us is up and running, paying attention, whether it be Brittany or myself. But sometimes I can't even get updates. I just want to be left alone and just checked out, just snuggle with my dog and be apart and away from the chaos. And I would suggest you do the same. Practice self-care. If you need a break, take a break. Don't lean in to getting a drink. Take a bath. Take a walk. Read a book. Occupy yourself with things other than the carnage and the chaos and the murder and the assassination squads in our streets. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be ready for the fight ahead. You won't be ready for the battles that we eventually, hopefully, will be declaring victory in. You need to take care of yourself. I beg of you to do that. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Until then, be genuine. Take care of yourself. Take care of others so you can be around later. Look, I don't know whether this is a sign of things to come, but it is certainly a seismic thing that happened yesterday when Chris Mattel, the leading candidate for the Republican Party to run for governor in Minnesota, dropped out. And he didn't just drop out of the race. He's using language that indicates to me maybe he's dropping out of the Republican Party altogether. He gives his reasons. I'm going to read for you just a very brief, literally 2 paragraphs from the Washington Post, kind of setting the stage. And then I'm going to play 2 parts of his 10-minute statement. I'm not playing 10 minutes, but this guy is not like a not Republican. He's not like a liberal Republican. He's a Republican. He opens his statement talking about how Minnesota has lost its way and there's fraud and people aren't safe in the streets. All of the nonsense tropes that you hear from Republicans. He's not a reasonable guy. He is for the fact that he is standing by what he believes. His policy positions are not reasonable, but I believe his heart is reasonable. But first, just to introduce what's going on with Chris Mattel, this is the Washington Post. Republican drops bid for governor, citing GOP's retribution on Minnesota. Chris Mattel said in a video posted to social media that ICE operations in his state have been an unmitigated disaster and that he cannot support the National Republican's stated retribution on the citizens of our state, nor can I count myself a member of a party that would do so. And that is the operative language. I'm not going to read the other paragraphs because I think it would just be repeating too many things. So what we're going to do is I'm going to play 2 clips for you. We're going to start with this very brief clip of his opening about how he loves his home state and what motivated him to run for governor. And again, pay attention because he's talking like a Republican. These are Republican talking points about there not being safety in the streets of Minneapolis, the largest city in the state. Trust me when I say the streets of Minneapolis are overwhelmingly safe.
I love Minnesota. I was born and raised here. My immediate family lives here. My extended family lives here. It's my home. I decided to run for governor because I firmly believe that Minnesota needs serious and systemic change. Fraud is rampant. Our streets are unsafe. We need to honor and respect law enforcement much more. Our education results lag behind Mississippi. Our taxes are absurdly high, and we're losing great businesses and people because of those taxes and ever-increasing regulations. I believe Minnesota has seriously lost its way.
There's fraud. The streets are unsafe. We need to love on cops more. Don't worry about brutality. Who cares about Derek Chauvin murdering George Floyd in 2020? We need to respect the cops more. This is a Republican. And Donald Trump has gone too far for even this guy. He dropped out of the race. He wants no part of what is taking place with Donald Trump threatening a day of reckoning and retribution for his state and his people. Watch this.
But today, I announced the end of my campaign. I have two primary reasons for this decision. Number one, I cannot support the National Republican's stated retribution on the citizens of our state, nor can I count myself a member of a party that would do so. I support the originally stated goals of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement's Operation Metro Surge in locating and deporting the worst of the worst from our state. And I've seen many examples of ICE arresting non-U.S. citizens in Minnesota convicted of serious crimes, including murder, rape, and child sexual assault. No reasonable person should want these people here, and I am glad that they are gone. But Operation Metro Surge has expanded far beyond its stated focus on true public safety threats. United States citizens, particularly those of color, live in fear. United States citizens are carrying papers to prove their citizenship. That's wrong. ICE has authorized its agents to raid homes using a civil warrant that need only be signed by a Border Patrol agent. That's unconstitutional and it's wrong. Weaponizing criminal investigations against political opponents is unconstitutional, regardless of who is in power. Republicans and Democrats alike have engaged in this misconduct, and both must be held to the same standard. They need to do better. And I have read about and I have spoken to countless United States citizens who have been detained in Minnesota due to the color of their skin. I personally have spoken to several law enforcement officers, some Hispanic and some Asian, who have been pulled over by ICE on pretextual stops. Driving while Hispanic is not a crime. Either is driving while Asian. At the end of the day, I have to look my daughters in the eye and tell them I believe I did what was right. And I am doing that today.
What are your reasons for dropping out, sir? Well, they're violating the Constitution. They're breaking the law constantly. ICE. They're assassinating citizens. He didn't put it like that, but that's what it is. And any clear-eyed individual with an actual heart for service, even if he's wrong about the shit that he thinks, we need more of that. Now, we'll wait and see what he said. Jason Chaffetz did shit like this when the grab him by the pussy tape came out. And Jason Chaffetz, he said the same thing. Like, what am I going to tell my daughters? Oh my God. And now he's one of Donald Trump's biggest fans, betraying his family in order to get cozy with power and Donald Trump and influence. Jason Chaffetz. So we'll see if Chris Mattel ends up being one of these people. But yesterday he was on with Aaron Burnett on CNN, and they had a couple of parts of this conversation I think are worthy of checking out, especially taken into the context of where we are in America right now, where so many Republicans don't have the courage to stand against clear tyranny, clear masked secret police in the states assassinating, executing American citizens, disappearing children, ripping apart families. Lives are being destroyed. We'll start with this, with Chris Mattel and Aaron Burnett.
Explained that in your campaign. I just played a little part of it there. But when you talk about Republican retribution on Minnesota, what do you mean by that?
The president posted something on Truth Social saying that it was a time of reckoning and retribution on the citizens of my state. And I've seen that happen. And I cannot be a part of it. And I can't be a part of a party that's a part of that.
I mean, obviously, this is, as I say, to say the very least, not done lightly. And it also, I mean, there's just your personal success right now. You made the decision, even as your candidacy struck a chord. You were finishing in the top 3 out of about a dozen candidates in straw polls among GOP voters, right? So you were rising to the top of the GOP party. Why did you feel then that this was a moral imperative?
Well, because I've talked to numerous people in my state that are getting pulled over because of the color of their skin, detained of the color of their skin. I've got the federal government saying that they can raid a house on the basis of a Border Patrol agent's signature as opposed to going to a neutral magistrate judge or Article 3 judge. This is just unconstitutional. And more importantly than that, it's just wrong. And to try to dress that up and say that this is some sort of, law enforcement maneuver, it's just not. I support the beginning of Operation Metro Surge, the idea of getting rid of the worst, and they did some of that. But it has gone so far beyond that goal that it just got to a point where I just literally cannot support that. I can't look my daughters in the eye and say, yeah, I'm doing the right thing by continuing this campaign, by being a member of this effort.
Why is that so hard for national Republicans? If all of them turned against Donald Trump, it would be over. Not even all. If a quarter of Republicans talked like, acted on their conscience like Chris Maddow has, it would be a different story in America. Donald Trump would have to work for the tyranny that he's delivering to the country. All they have to say is the same thing. I cannot be a part of it. Donald Trump on Truth Social saying it was a time of reckoning and retribution on the citizens of my state. I've seen that happen, and I cannot be a part of it. And I can't be a part of a party that's a part of it. It's that easy, Lindsey Graham. You coward. It's that easy. You weaklings. Now, look, we know there's bad actors. There's psychopaths and sociopaths in the Republican Party, to be sure. It's replete, just chock full. The Troy Nells and the Jim Jordans, the James Comers. But there are people, and I don't think Lindsey Graham's one of them, but there are certainly people out there. I think John Thune could be a guy who's like, this is too much. And he could pressure his party, being the majority leader of the United States Senate right now, to make some better choices, to pressure Donald Trump to start acting like anything other than a murderous ghoul. Aaron Burnett continued with Chris Maddow, and here's that.
You talked about, at the end of the day, I have to look my daughters in the eye and tell them I believe I did what was right. I'm a parent, so many people watching are. But tell me about why it was so important for your daughters to see you do this, Chris.
When I look at my daughters, I want them, like every other parent, I want them to have a better life than I did. But I also want them to know that I'm leading by example. And when I want them to know that it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. It doesn't matter where you came from. We need to treat everybody with a measure of humanity. And that's what it really means to be an American. That's what we are. We are a nation of immigrants. And when we're treating United States citizens for they're hiding in their homes right now in Minnesota, they're afraid to go outside. We have United States citizens, because of their color of their skin, are carrying papers, their passport with them, pictures of their passport, because they're afraid of being picked up by the federal government. That is antithetical to everything our country is about, literally everything. And I want my daughters to know that I stood up and said no. It's far important to me that I said no to this than I become the Republican gubernatorial candidate, and see my name in lights with respect to that. There are some things that are far more important than just running for office, and I needed them to know that.
That is a reality view of exactly what's taking place. People are hiding in their homes. Cops who are black and brown, or brown and Asian in the case of what he's talking about, are being harangued, harassed by ICE agents, demanding their papers like this is Nazi Germany. Where were you born? Prove your worth to me, a high school dropout functionally illiterate ICE agent with my face covered who couldn't pass an open book test, but yet here I am with authority to detain, arrest, and usurp your constitutional rights. They've given the least of us the most power. They've given the worst of us the most authority over the rest of us. And Chris Mattel, he ain't here for it. I hope he can pressure other Republicans in his state to start with, because there's a bunch of dipshits in the Republican Party who are prominent from Minnesota. Tom Emmer, there's a whole bunch of them. And they need to do better for their constituents, if not for the Republic, if not to safeguard our country against literal tyranny. How far the Don't Tread on Me crowd has fallen. Am I right? Anyway, thank you, Chris Mattel. Look, I don't agree with you on policy. I think you're stone cold wrong, and I think you have a warped sense of reality in that case. But it seems to me, sir, you do have a good and decent heart. And at the very least, if that's not the case, you're willing to speak reality into the ears of MAGA land. And that you should be lauded for. So what do you think? The rest of you, where am I wrong? Where am I right? You can comment below. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, as always, daily@dollemore.com. If you appreciate my work and you want to help support this, for $2 a month, you can produce these videos, this show with me on patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it's just a mechanism and a website that helps you support creators that you appreciate the work of. And I am one of those creators on Patreon, along with Brittany Page. Anyway, you can also just become a channel member right here on YouTube. Click the join button below. It's not as great a deal because YouTube takes like 30% of whatever you give, where Patreon takes 5%. So, because we've been there for a long time. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.